McLaren, a team that once ruled Formula 1, striking fear into its competitors. From Senna's masterful driving to Hamilton's dramatic first title. They were a powerhouse, but as history shows us, the mighty can and will fall. Bad decisions, disastrous partnerships, and enough internal drama to rival a reality TV show sent McLaren spiraling down the grid. But today, McLaren is back, baby, and this is the story of their fall and their wild journey back to the top. Buckle up!
It's going to be a bumpy ride!
Once upon a time, McLaren was the team. The driver lineup, Ayrton, Senna and Alain Prost, two of the greatest drivers ever, sharing the same garage. Sounds amazing, right? Wrong. It was pure chaos. Pure, beautiful chaos. So between 84 and 91, McLaren won 7 out of 8 championships. That's like playing video games on easy mode. Their 88 season was ridiculous. 15 wins out of 16 races. The only race they lost because Senna crashed into a backmarker while comfortably leading. Oops. Behind the scenes, Ron Dennis ran the team with military precision. And by military precision, we mean he was obsessed with perfection. Honda's V6 turbo engines were basically rocket ships, and McLaren's engineers were at the top of the game. It was a dream team, but dreams don't last forever. And when two ultra-competitive drivers are stuck in the same garage, things are bound to explode. The rivalry between Senna and Prost was less about competition and more about psychological warfare. Prost was calculating, while Senna was aggressive and emotional. They respected each other, kind of, but they also wanted to end each other's careers. Their infamous clashes at Suzuka in 89 and 90, that's the definition of, if I can't have it, neither can you. The team tried to manage it, but honestly, they had about as much control over the situation as a substitute teacher on a Friday afternoon.
Teacher, can I use the bathroom?
I don't know, can you?
I don't know, can you get a full-time job?
Despite the drama though, McLaren was still winning, but behind the scenes, the foundation were cracking. Honda was getting tired of politics, Prost left for Ferrari, and McLaren's once unbreakable dominance was about to get its first major test. In 94, Senna had moved to Williams, and McLaren had lost its biggest star. The team scrambled for a new direction, but without Honda and without a top-tier driver, things started to fall apart. After years of domination, things started to get, well, complicated. Honda left F1, leaving McLaren scrambling for an engine supplier like a college student scrambling for Wi-Fi during finals week. They first tried Ford. It was like, okay, nothing special. Then they tried Peugeot, which was a flaming disaster. The engines was as reliable as wet cardboard, so McLaren did what any logical team did. They dumped Peugeot faster than a bad Tinder date and switched to Mercedes in 1995. Mika Häkkinen, a man who spoke with the speed of sloth but drove like a man possessed, started bringing McLaren back up to the front.
Quicker than Michael throughout the race. Were you just waiting for the pit stops?
Yes.
Okay.
But the team wasn't quite championship material. Meanwhile, Ferrari was cooking something big, and Michael Schumacher was about to make everyone's lives miserable for the next 5 years. McLaren wasn't terrible, but they weren't McLaren anymore. The fear factor was gone, and so was their winning streak. This was the start of McLaren's first identity crisis. They still had Ron Dennis at the helm, and they still felt like a top team, but the results said otherwise. Every year the fans hoped for a return to the dominance. Every year they got podiums instead of titles. Meanwhile, Ferrari and Williams were running the show, and Schumacher and Ferrari started winning everything. McLaren was no longer the big boss of Formula 1, they were just another contender. Mercedes engines gave them reliability, but they didn't have a dominant car. The late 90s would change that, but it would take the arrival of a certain genius aerodynamist to make it happen. Enter Adrian Newey, an aerodynamics genius who designed F1 cars like Picasso painted masterpieces. The MP4-13, His first McLaren car was an absolute beast. Mika Häkkinen won the championship in 1998 and did it again in 99. McLaren was back, baby! But then Ferrari, led by Schumacher and an army of engineers who basically invented modern F1 dominance, took over. By the early 2000s, McLaren was left fighting for scraps. McLaren still had flashes of brilliance though. Kimi Räikkönen came this close to winning the 2003 championship, but got outdeveloped by Ferrari. Then, in 2005 and 2006, McLaren had the fastest car, but couldn't put together a title challenge. They were always close, just not close enough. There was a brief moment of hope in 2008. A young Lewis Hamilton won his first championship with McLaren in the most dramatic way possible, overtaking in the last corner of the last lap of the last race to win by a single point. Peak cinema. Sadly though, that was McLaren's last hooray, because what came next, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. McLaren was once again in a weird spot. Good, but not quite good enough. Even in 2010 and 12, when they had the fastest car at multiple points, they kept shooting themselves in the foot. Pit stop errors, bad strategy calls, and general lack of consistency kept them from taking the title. Sounds familiar?
Stay out!
Ah, Spygate. One of the biggest scandals in F1 history.
And also in the last couple of weeks we had the news that the Italian police are investigating the senior race engineer of Ferrari, Nigel Stepney, amid all kinds of allegations and rumours about sabotage and espionage as well.
In 2007, McLaren was caught with Ferrari's confidential documents. The punishment? A record-breaking $100 million fine and a one-way ticket out of the constructors. McLaren swore they never actually used the stolen data, but the FIA disagreed. The fallout was brutal. Fernando Alonso, who had just joined the team, turned on them like a soap opera villain. And rookie sensation Lewis Hamilton nearly won the title, but lost by a single point. The damage was done. Alonso left after 1 year. Ron Dennis' grips on the team started slipping, and McLaren was headed straight for an identity crisis number 2. Owen Hamilton? Yeah. He left for Mercedes in 2013, you know, the team that then went on to dominate F1 for nearly a decade.
That is the best move of the lot! Look at the state of that Mercedes car! 7-time champion of the world!
This wasn't just about a scandal, it was about trust. McLaren had been one of the most respected names in the sport, and now they were that team that got caught cheating. Sponsors were nervous, other teams smelled blood. And internally, McLaren was struggling with leadership. Ron Dennis was losing influence, and the stability that had once defined the team, that was gone. The domino effect of Spygate wasn't just a big fine, it was the beginning of a long, painful downfall. By the time McLaren reached the mid-2010, they were no longer a top team. They were a midfield team, you know, the kind that gets interviewed by Sky Sports only if they accidentally end up on the podium. Desperate for a return to glory, McLaren rekindled their legendary partnership with Honda in 2015. It was supposed to be a love story, a beautiful reunion of two great forces in F1 history. Instead, it turned out to be a horror film. The new Honda power unit was, how do we put this delicately, a complete and utter disaster. It was unreliable, slow, sounded like a dying lawnmower. McLaren drivers spent more time walking back to the paddock than actually driving. Fernando Alonso, who had rejoined the team, was not amused. The guy had just won 2 world championships with Renault and expected McLaren to give him a title contending car. Instead, he got an engine that had the power of a microwave potato. McLaren's relationship with Honda had no happy ending. By 2017, it was clear that things weren't going to improve. The team finished 9th in the Constructors' Championship, behind teams with a fraction of their budget. Enter Zak Brown, a marketing genius, a businessman, and most importantly, a guy with a plan. When he took over McLaren in 2016, the team was in shambles. No results, no direction, and the only thing growing was the list of angry sponsors. Brown got to work. First, he stabilized McLaren's finances, bringing in fresh sponsorship deals to keep the team afloat. Then he made a big decision, ditching Honda and switching to Renault. It wasn't a magic fix, but at least now McLaren had an engine that didn't self-destruct every 3 races. But Brown knew that wasn't enough. McLaren needed more than just decent power units. They needed an identity, a long-term plan, and most importantly, the right people. So he brought on Andreas Seidl as team principal in 2019. Seidl, a no-nonsense, hyper-efficient leader, started reorganizing McLaren's entire structure. He streamlined their operation, improved car development, and fostered a better work culture. And guess what? It worked! In 2019, McLaren finished 4th in the Constructors' Championship, their best results in years. Then came 2021, and with it, a moment McLaren fans had been waiting for. A win. And not just any win. A 1-2 finish at Monza. Daniel Ricciardo took the victory, Lando Norris backing him up in second. It was McLaren's first win since 2012, and for the first time in a long time, they looked like a team that belonged in the front. And Zak Brown just got a tattoo. Fast forward to today, and McLaren is no longer just a nostalgic F1 team that people talk about in Remember When conversations. They're a legitimate force again. But the big question remains, can they finally return to the top? The team has been making all the right moves. In 23, they introduced in-season upgrades that transformed the car from a tractor into a podium contender.
I'm moving up and down, side to side, like a roller coaster.
Their driver lineup, one of the best on the grid. Lando Norris has evolved into a world-class driver, and Oscar Piastri is proving to be a reborn Kimi on both the track and in interviews. McLaren has also invested heavily in infrastructure, finally completing the long-awaited wind tunnel, which allowed them to develop their cars more efficiently without relying on outside facilities. In this cost cap era, this kind of investment is crucial. So what's next? Can McLaren finally break Red Bull dominance? Will Norris or Piastri get the chance to fight for a world title this year? The potential is there, the talent is there, but now it's all about execution. Last year, they even got the Constructors' Championship. One thing's for sure, McLaren is no longer just a team living in the past. They're back, and the rest of the grid should be worried. The Papaya army is stronger than ever, and this comeback, it's only getting started.